Over a year and a half ago, Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND was announced. This didn't come as a surprise to many Kingdom Hearts fans because we had expected some sort of announcement of a Kingdom Hearts 3 Final Mix or some sort of DLC. It's almost tradition at this point that many of the most major Kingdom Hearts releases end up receiving some sort of re-release with extra content or a Final Mix. When Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND was initially announced, they took a different approach with the advertisement, however. The trailers this time around were extremely vague and gave us the bare minimum of what they'd be adding to this DLC. They told us that they'd allow us to play as characters like Roxas, Riku, and Aqua in the Keyblade Graveyard fights, and that they'd be adding the Oathkeeper and Oblivion Keyblade with the transformations. On top of that, we saw 2 cutscenes featuring the Master of Masters and young Xehanort, along with the cutscene with Luxord and Xigbar in Olympus Coliseum. This was enough to build excitement for the DLC, as it had already acknowledged more than a few complaints people had had with the base game release. Oathkeeper and Oblivion being absent from the main game, and characters like Roxas being playable. So they were already off to a pretty decent start with the advertisement. In interviews that released after the initial announcement trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND, it was confirmed that everything we had just saw was only from the ReMIND scenario portion of the DLC and the free patch coming along with it. Fast forwarding to later that year, we got about 2 more Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND trailers before the DLC would eventually release in early January. We were revealed in the second trailer at Tokyo Game Show that we were in fact getting full-scale data fights in this DLC, fixing one of the biggest problems that I had with base Kingdom Hearts 3, with there being a lack of post-game boss fights aside from Dark Inferno. I'm sorry, Dark Inferno, I love you. You held me down for well over a year, but I had to move on. Then, let's get to the final Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND trailer. I still, to this day, just get goosebumps thinking about how I felt when that trailer was initially released. The amount of excitement I had. I still, to this day, feel like that was the best Kingdom Hearts trailer I had ever seen. The amount of excitement I got from this trailer was beyond anything I felt from even the base Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. Maybe aside from when I saw the release date for Kingdom Hearts 3 for the first time, understandably. Though aside from that, this trailer just had everything. Explorable Scarlet Kylam, Final Fantasy characters, epic data boss fights, a insane looking Guardians fight with them fighting all the replica Xehanorts, and a playable Kairi, which I screamed a little too loud at, not gonna lie. And above all else, Yozora. Just Yozora. Yozora, that sequence at the end of that trailer was just amazing. The craziest thing is that it felt like this trailer didn't take away from the experience of the DLC package either. It didn't feel like it spoiled anything because I still had so many questions from this trailer, and they didn't show much more than, like, I'd say 3 to 7 seconds of anything really revealing any major context to any of these events. There wasn't a lot to piece together like there was with a lot of the other Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers because we had so many more of them. With ReMIND, we only got 3 trailers in total, and all of them kind of showed some different stuff. I mean, the first 2 trailers were pretty similar, the third trailer being the main one that was different, and we couldn't piece together what went with what was Limit Cut, what was ReMIND scenario, what was the secret episode. I mean, if you guys remember back then, if you were still around the channel, I thought at one point that the secret episode was going to be the Sora and Kairi stuff. I didn't think the secret episode was the Yozora stuff, but we'll get to that later, which is something I feel a need to point out because Kingdom Hearts 3 got so many trailers that it did feel like it kind of hampered the experience on quite a few things, especially towards the end of Kingdom Hearts 3's advertisement cycle. It felt like they were just showing us a lot. Like, for example, we probably never should have seen anything, not a single scene from Keyblade Graveyard. We probably should have never even seen the back of Roxas' head, for example. Those were things that definitely messed with some expectations and took away a little bit of the surprise of some of these scenes. A lot of these scenes still end up being good at the end of the day, but it did hamper them a little bit. But with ReMIND, since we only got 3 trailers, 3 very vague trailers, that did show enough as well to get us excited. When ReMIND came out, I was still just blown away by everything. I had no clue what to expect next. It was all just surprise after surprise, and I loved it. Not even to mention how good the patch was, how much it changed the combat, the flow of the entire game. It was just so good. It was an amazing time to be a Kingdom Hearts fan. It felt like Kingdom Hearts 3 came out again a year later, and it was just so beautiful. But let's take a look at all of the sections of the DLC and how I felt about them one by one, starting with the ReMIND scenario. This scenario was more than bizarre, but ended up being so great. You start off the scenario directly after defeating Final Xehanort in the main story, taking place right when Sora goes on another adventure to save Kairi, who wasn't there with them, as she got hurt during the final battle with Xehanort when he crystallized her. This will lead Sora to using the power of waking once again to save her. To do this, he has to trace Kairi's heart throughout the events leading up to the final fight with Xehanort. This meant, from a gameplay perspective, we ended up redoing a lot of fights in the ending sequence of Kingdom Hearts 3, although with some minor to hefty differences, like new team attacks with your party members, being able to play as some of your party members, and additional new cutscenes and perspectives we otherwise would not have seen if it wasn't for this future Sora's perspective on some things. This, during some moments, did feel a little bit odd, because it was like, why are we replaying some of the same stuff? That's often what I was thinking. At some point, I thought I was just bugged. I glitched and somehow transferred myself back to like the ending of the game and didn't actually start playing ReMIND, because I was literally looking at some of these same exact scenes with no changes sometimes. Though from a narrative point of view, it does work out a little bit. It is coherent, but definitely should have been structured a tiny bit differently. I'd recommend, if they were to revisit a situation like this in the future, that they should restructure it a little bit differently. However, like I said, there is some new stuff here. Something new during this section that I appreciated is that they took one of the best cutscenes in the entire game, entire series to me, in the Roxas Return cutscene, and just amped it up heavily. This time, you see the journey Roxas' heart makes as he's coming to the rescue. And you also see a beautiful scene of the Days Trio retrieving what bound them together in the first place, that sigil, which is such a beautiful touch to this scene that made it all the more emotional. I just loved it. I'm a sucker for just anything involving the Days Trio, I know. They did do a similar thing with the Terra returning cutscene as well, but less dramatic. This took up about a solid third of the ReMIND scenario. The bulk of this DLC takes place after the Triple Xehanort fight, right after Kairi gets crystallized. This is when future Sora takes the opportunity to travel inside Xehanort's Scala Adkylum, and then everything happens. We get to explore Scala Adkylum now for a bit to collect pieces of Kairi's heart, though Sora doesn't do this fast enough and can't find the last piece, so he decides to go back to the Guardians in a desperate attempt to figure out where it is. This is when we get to fight as all of the Guardians in one of the most epic sequences Kingdom Hearts has ever done. This was just extremely action-packed with amazing voice lines and interactions, and I just love this. This culminates in an extremely cool segment with Mickey fighting off all of the Xehanort replicas. That ended up being one of the most memorable moments in the Kingdom Hearts franchise for me, and also one of the most broken things I've ever seen the Kingdom Hearts character do. Like, look at this. I still love this though. And after this, Sora finds that last piece and he goes to rescue Kairi. But we have one final trial, and that is to defeat another armored Xehanort with all new moves and attacks, and we get to play as Kairi for the first time ever in the Kingdom Hearts series. I was not expecting Kairi to be this fun. Not this fun. I was hoping she would be fun, but I didn't know what to expect. However, I was just blown away, and this is what really started me wanting to push for more playable Kairi segments in the future, because if she's going to play like this, I need more of this. Like, my second favorite character to play as in the series, aside from Sora, who's obviously number one, would probably be Aqua. I enjoy Aqua's playstyle quite a lot, and Kairi's playstyle is just amazing. Like, she might have like my second favorite playstyle. She could potentially, if expand upon, maybe give her some abilities, give her a menu to customize. She could be like even more fun to play as in Sora, and that might sound absolutely crazy. I might regret saying that later, but like still right now I feel that way. She could be so fun. I love this. Anyways, this fight just had everything, and in some sense you could consider this the true final boss of Kingdom Hearts 3 of the Keyblade War. After this, Sora has finished his mission and returns to the final world. After this, the ending commences with a couple of additional scenes with Sora and Kairi sprinkled throughout. This gives way more context to Sora's disappearance in Kingdom Hearts 3 and that tear from Kairi in the end, wrapping up the ending very beautifully. So I don't know if that's the right word for it, because it's still pretty sad because Sora disappears in the end, but still, it's a very nice ending. That's what I'm trying to say. But this wraps up the ReMIND scenario for the DLC. Overall, a very good addition to the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3. This package featured so much additional content that I really just appreciate. Overall, very good, but this was only part of what they offered. Moving on to the Limit Cut DLC, which takes place a year after the events that just took place, and everyone is working super hard to find out where Sora is, to very little result. This is when Final Fantasy characters return to help out, and Sid gathers data from all the organization members and Sora for the purpose of research. This is when we get into the data fights for Kingdom Hearts 3. All 13 battles against the Seekers of Darkness remade for our pleasure or our rage, because these fights are hard. Still to this day, a lot of people have not gotten past them. It's crazy because I often ask people, ask viewers, ask friends, have you been in all these fights? Have you even gone to Azura yet? And a lot of people are like, no. A lot of people did a couple of fights, had too much trouble on some, and just couldn't beat all of them, which is fine by itself, but I do disagree how some people use this as a reason to call the DLC bad, though it is something to think about, because I must clarify that these fights are perfectly balanced and doable on even the highest of difficulties. I know that sometimes it's really hard to think of how to get past a fight because you're not used to like things like this in Kingdom Hearts, or fights just this hard, because these are some of the hardest fights the series has produced, but this is what makes them so fun for a lot of people as well. It personally took me multiple lengthy streams to beat these fights for the first time and unlock the secret episode, which I see as a main issue with this. The fact that you need to do this to unlock the secret episode, though, that might be my only issue. Personally, I don't mind that 100% because that's also what makes the secret episode so rewarding to get to, though not everyone is down for that sort of thing and don't care about the challenge. So this being required to unlock some crazy story content that's in the secret episode can be understandable for why it's very annoying to a lot of players. Though this was in direct response to many of the fans saying Kingdom Hearts 3 was entirely too easy when they first played through the game, like I just said, and they sure did pull a 180 with that. I think next time around there should be a little bit more consistency, more of a gradual step towards the difficulty rather than easy, hard. But overall though, I'm just super satisfied with what we got. But it's just insane because I was so shocked that these data fights were this hard, because I made a level 50 file for this rather than a level 99 one. I eventually grinded that file to a higher level, but that didn't even help, because while being a higher level will give you some extra damage, a little bit of extra security, it does not win you the fight at all. You still actively have to learn the boss's patterns, or at least most of them, especially on higher difficulties and especially with restrictions. Overall though, extremely enjoyable content for me, and it's still just crazy that a year later I still found myself coming back to this when playing Kingdom Hearts 3. This added so much replayability to this game that it didn't have as much of before, aside from just redoing another playthrough. I'm just so happy they did this. Now for the thing a lot of people wanted to play this DLC for, what surprises await us in the secret episode. We start off with Sora after the ending in this suspicious place that looks awfully similar to the final world, likely literally because that's seemingly what it is, but at night. This is when Yozora, that character we saw in the Toy Box world in a video game trailer for Verum Rex, come into play. He says a lot of weird stuff to Sora about why are you using Sora's name and I will save you. As you probably figured, he's the secret boss, and man, he does not play around. Yozora would actually destroy Lingering Will's entire existence. He completely stumps him as the hardest boss fight in the Kingdom Hearts series, at least to me. And he also is the most satisfying boss I've had the pleasure of learning in the series in quite a while. This boss has insane amounts of depth and patterns and punishes we were still learning months after the DLC release. This fight rewards you for using all of the game's mechanics, and I love it for that, because it takes what the data bosses already did and not only matches it, but upscales it. I seriously cannot do this fight enough justice without making an entire video just breaking it down, which many people have already done. I just simply want to say though, thank you Square Enix for allowing me to experience something just this masterful. I genuinely think the secret episode was perfection. I made a whole video about that when ReMIND came out. That secret episode was indeed perfect. It returns the standard of mystery to the Kingdom Hearts franchise. This series is known for its mysterious plot and unraveling its lore. That's why you see thousands of theories on YouTube and other social media platforms about this franchise, even dating back to things revealed in Kingdom Hearts 1. However, for a long time, it hasn't reached its peak because while waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3, we knew quite a lot about how the game's ending might function. Maybe not down to the minor details, but we found out from trailers who a lot of the Seekers of Darkness were. We knew who the 7 Guardians of Light would be, and we knew that the ending of the game would climax with a war between the 7 Lights and 13 Darknesses, though right now, we know close to nothing about what they plan on doing with characters like the Lost Masters, or Yozora, or Lorium and Elrena, or the Union leaders. Even Dark Road is like extremely mysterious right now. We have no idea where they're heading with that, and that's a story all about young Xehanort. But this ending, along with the epilogue and the secret ending to Kingdom Hearts 3, added an element of mystery that I wouldn't say has been missing, but hasn't been expanded upon for quite some time. And it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing seeing stuff like this in the main console games. This feeling is brought back to me tenfold when I see the good and bad endings of this secret episode, which show Yozora in a scene very similar to clips from Final Fantasy Vs 13 trailers from a long time ago, which was a past project Nomura was working on. It's just so weird, it's so refreshing to see something like this in Kingdom Hearts. They really are going a whole new direction, as Nomura has been teasing for quite a while now that he wants to go with the next saga. This on top of Yozora and Sora saying the exact same lines from Kingdom Hearts 1 creates just such mystery that really defines what makes me so invested in the Kingdom Hearts plot. I just love it. I was just intensely excited for what's to come, and a big reason for this is because of this amazing DLC pack, this amazing secret ending that released over a year ago. Man, I just loved Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND. I believe it brought together many people in the community as well. I believe it brought together many people in a community that was pretty divisive after Kingdom Hearts 3's initial release. Not everyone loved ReMIND, but that's okay. Though what this DLC did offer to the Kingdom Hearts fans that did love it was a lot. For fans more disappointed with the base product of Kingdom Hearts 3, it reignited hope in a franchise they grew up loving. For people already in love with base Kingdom Hearts 3, it was a huge extra layer of cake with that cherry on top that cemented this game as one of their favorites. Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMIND added to the legacy that was Kingdom Hearts 3 in a very positive way that I believe will have players returning to this title for years to come and even well after future Kingdom Hearts releases. I just wanted to say though, once again, a big thank you to Square Enix for continuing to support this series for as long as you have been and continuing to make entries that become some of my favorite games. I honestly just love this series way too much, and what it's brought me and who it's allowed me to meet and interact with. The community for Kingdom Hearts will always be my favorite community, no matter what happens, because a lot of you guys are honestly just like family to me. I grew up with a lot of you guys, to be honest. Even back at the beginning of the Kingdom Hearts 3 hype train, when I was like just coming out of middle school, I'll be talking to a lot of you guys on forums or in comment sections or on Twitter, social media in general, and it was really nice to have people to like kind of bond with and talk about Kingdom Hearts with. So you guys really are like family and are just a part of my life now. Hopefully Square Enix continues to make great games that bring people together and great Kingdom Hearts entries like this one. I plan on making more Kingdom Hearts 3 anniversary content throughout the rest of the month of January, the rest of the week rather, so look forward to some of that. Some tips for people who enjoyed videos like this I would recommend would be to leave a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and last but not least, if not already, and want to become a part of the union, all you have to do is hit that red little subscribe button down below. My name is Prodigy, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out, you guys. Bye.